The period from 1505 to 1510 in what would later become the United States of America was a time of continued European exploration and early attempts at colonization, primarily by the Spanish. While the region that is now the USA was not yet a focal point of European activity, the events of this era laid the groundwork for future colonization and interaction with indigenous peoples. Here's a combined narrative of the key events during this time. 1505. The Spanish consolidate their presence in the Caribbean by 1505. The Spanish had established a firm foothold in the Caribbean, particularly on the island of Hispaniola, modern-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo, founded in 1496, had become the center of Spanish colonial administration. The Spanish began to exploit the island's resources, particularly gold, using forced labor from the indigenous Taino population. This system, known as the encomienda, granted Spanish settlers control over indigenous communities, leading to widespread suffering and population decline due to disease, overwork, and violence. 1506. The death of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus, the explorer who had initiated European contact with the Americas in 1492, died in 1506 in Valladolid, Spain. Despite his pivotal role in opening the Americas to European exploration, Columbus died in relative obscurity, unaware that he had discovered a new world. His voyages, however, had set in motion a wave of exploration and colonization that would reshape the globe. 1507. The naming of America. In 1507, German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller published a world map that labeled the newly discovered lands as America, in honor of Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci. Vespucci had written extensively about his voyages to South America, arguing that these lands were not part of Asia but a separate continent. Waldseemüller's map popularized the name America, and it eventually came to refer to the entire Western Hemisphere. 1508. The founding of Puerto Rico. In 1508, Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León, who had accompanied Columbus on his second voyage, established the first European settlement in Puerto Rico, naming it Capara. Ponce de León was appointed the first governor of the island, and the Spanish began to exploit its resources, particularly gold. Like in Hispaniola, the indigenous Taino population suffered greatly under Spanish rule, facing forced labor, disease, and violence. 1509. Exploration of the South American coast. In 1509, Spanish explorers began to venture further along the northern coast of South America, mapping the region and establishing contact with indigenous peoples. Alonso de Ojeda, a veteran of Columbus's voyages, founded the settlement of San Sebastián de Urabá in present-day Colombia. Although the settlement struggled and was eventually abandoned, it marked the beginning of Spanish efforts to colonize the mainland. 1510. The founding of Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien. In 1510, Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa established the settlement of Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien in present-day Panama. This became the first stable European settlement on the mainland of the Americas and served as a base for further exploration. Balboa's leadership and diplomatic skills helped the settlement survive, and it became a launching point for future expeditions, including Balboa's famous crossing of the Isthmus of Panama to the Pacific Ocean in 1513. Conclusion. The seeds of colonization. The years between 1505 and 1510 were a period of consolidation and expansion for the Spanish in the Americas. While the focus was primarily on the Caribbean and South America, these efforts laid the groundwork for future exploration and colonization of North America. The Spanish established a model of colonization that relied on the exploitation of indigenous labor and resources, a pattern that would be repeated as European powers expanded their presence in the New World. This era also marked the beginning of the tragic decline of indigenous populations due to disease, warfare, and forced labor. The events of this period set the stage for the eventual colonization of what would become the United States, shaping the course of history for centuries to come.